Salisbury, North Carolina. I am just so glad to be here this morning. I want to thank you all for attending the program this morning. Is called is uh-oh, how five librarians navigated a new job during the coronavirus pandemic, and they're at the largest HBCU that we've all learned about in the last few days, with the most contributions or donations that have been made to them. So we're glad to have them with us this morning. And our presenters this morning are Harvey Long, Joni Chavis, Forrest Foster. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Forrest Foster, Katie Kehoe, Franklin Robinson. And you can read the abstract about the session for this morning. So if you would like, you can remove the closed captioning by clicking the arrow next to live transcript and selecting hide subtitle if you do not want to see the subtitles. This session is being recorded, and all chats will also be recorded, including the private chats. So recordings of sessions will be emailed to the registrants after this is over. We will be monitoring the chat, so you can enter your questions and comments there, or we'll give you an opportunity at the end of the session to also talk directly to the speakers. So please be sure to use everyone when sending a chat to the group. Okay. So at this time, we're going to give the speakers, when it's their turn, to say a little bit more about themselves rather than spending a lot of time doing their biographies, because we want to get on with the session. So how five librarians navigated a new job during the coronavirus pandemic. And Harvey, are you starting us out this morning?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
All righty.
So welcome to the presentation, How Five Librarians Navigated a New Job During the Coronavirus Pandemic. My name is Harvey Long, and I'm with four of my colleagues from North Carolina A&T's Bluford Library. Before we start, I'll share a bit about our topic. So at the height of the coronavirus pandemic, we all joined Bluford Library. We attended orientations remotely and learned about our new duties and responsibilities through a series of emails and Zoom calls. We examine our unique experiences by highlighting challenges and lessons learned from starting a new job during unprecedented times. Drawing on our experiences, we will outline opportunities to transform traditional onboarding and orientation practices at academic libraries. We represent a diverse group, from early career librarians to senior library administrators. First up is my colleague, Katie Kehoe. Take it away, Katie.
Good morning, everyone. Harvey, thank you so much for putting this panel together. My name is Katie Kehoe, and I am the Grants and Communications Librarian at NCA&T. I was asked to discuss what my transition was like to my current position during the pandemic. To go along with my presentation, I have made a handout that I'm about to drop into the chat, and this just summarizes what I'm going to talk about, and this is something you're welcome to share with new graduates in your life. To give a bit of background, I graduated from UNC Chapel Hill's Library Science program in May 2020. And I must admit, entering the job market during COVID-19 felt a little bit like this. For many of the jobs I had applied to pre-March, I received letters from libraries saying they were entering a hiring freeze and they would not be moving forward with adding new staff. Or the number of new library job postings were sparse and more competitive than ever. This presentation is centered on what it is like to graduate during a crisis, what I've learned about applying for jobs that I never would have tried had the pandemic not occurred, and how we can help ourselves and others find their way to the next stage of their early career during unusual times. So as the pandemic unfolded, could you move to the next slide for me? Thank you. My fellow library students and I approached graduation. We shared stories of our job searches, including national postings, withdrawal positions, and our anxieties about finding work. In retrospect, this was useful because we used our peer network and technology like Zoom to help each other job search in new ways, and it helped us understand that much of the situation was out of our control. I also contacted my mentors and I asked them, what should I be doing during COVID? Vision myself for a full-time library job in the future. And one of the many things that was recommended to me was informational interviews. And the Zoom era made conducting informational interviews much easier than before. It became possible to ask for just 30 minutes of someone's time, and I got to speak with public library managers, directors, deans, library professionals who graduated in 2008. My focus was not so much on finding a job, but to do practical exploration of the field beyond my previous library experience and what I learned in my degree. This research will forever change how I view the field, what I want to do with my career, and how I plan to gain new skills as a librarian. So I spent my summer doing these informational interviews, volunteering for NCLA and their new literacy section and digital equity organizations, and I freelance copywrote and edited to pay the bills. And in July, I reached out to an old supervisor of mine, and he had forwarded my CV to Dean Coleman, who knew me from my internship with Greensboro Bound, where she was on the board. We talked about our library, and we had a genuinely wonderful conversation about librarianship. She tells me there might be an opening at Bluford Library, and I knew that this library and this specific job would be one that I would really love because I had already invested the time and energy into informational interviews before this opportunity appeared. So a few weeks later, the position opens up, I submit a formal application, and in August 2020, I land my current job at the library. Next slide. But as I trace back how I arrived here, it was the advice that I got from my peers, my mentors, and those from across the country who agreed to jump on Zoom with me during a crisis to talk to a graduate student, thank you, that I learned about building a professional network that I wouldn't have tried otherwise. So here's a summary of how I would carry this forward. If you're a new graduate, I would make a list of your champions, who are the professionals in your career who want to see you employed, and I would recruit them to help you find the experts that you would like to interview. Do your homework before the informational interview. Find out what their organization's mission statement is. Look at their LinkedIn account, ask about publications. And one of the things that I learned about 2008 graduates was that they often focused on transferable skills. Even if they couldn't find a job in their library, they might be able to learn library-like skills in another position. If you'd like to help a new librarian or a young graduate, this doesn't have to be a large investment of your time. It could be as simple as keeping a record of professional listservs that you participate in and inviting your interns to join this listserv so that they can hear about the conversations happening in the field. You can also go to a speed networking event or speed interview event, even just once a year. So I'm going to close out because I want to give the rest of my colleagues a chance to talk about where their transitions were. The next person who is going to be leading us off is Harvey Long.
Thank you, Katie. So my name is Harvey Long, and I'm the Student Success Librarian at Bluford Library. And the title of my presentation is Leaning on the Library Community Through Collaboration. As an early career librarian in a newly created position during a global pandemic, I learned a few valuable lessons. I started as Bluford Library's inaugural Student Success Librarian on March the 2nd, 2020, just 1 week before A&T suspended in-person instruction. This position was my dream job. I had assisted my peers with finding resources as a former student library worker. Shout out to C.G. O'Kelly Library. As a first-generation college student, I benefited from archivists and reference librarians who took an interest in my intellectual development. These experiences in higher education informed my commitment to student success, and I was excited about the opportunity to continue this work at the nation's largest historically Black university. But engaging both students and on-campus partners during the pandemic have been challenging. However, I've learned to connect with my colleagues in a virtual community and establish networks with other student success librarians, and I'm thriving. Well, maybe not thriving, but at least I'm fulfilling my duties and responsibilities. In just a year, I've deepened the library's relationship with First Gen Aggies, of course, with the help of my colleague, Joni Chavis, presented at a national conference, published an article, and submitted 2 grants. During this presentation, I will discuss the importance of leaning on the library community by collaborating with colleagues in your library and colleagues across libraries. And we heard a little bit about this morning, but creating informal opportunities for library staff to connect can strengthen working relationships. In April 2020, Carlos Grooms, a talented colleague of mine at Bluford, launched a virtual coffee break. Carlos had me at coffee, but on a serious note, these sessions were the only way that I could get to know my colleagues beyond a name on the library's directory. During these weekly 1-hour discussions, library staff talked about everything from the latest movie to stream to the best plant-based burger. While conversations often happened organically, a prompt or topic might be helpful for your library. Informal sessions are also the perfect space to ask that one question you were too afraid to ask during the all-staff meeting. The second lesson I learned during the pandemic was to lean on my colleagues in the field across libraries. I found that librarians in similar roles are always willing to help. Early on, I reached out to another student success outreach, first-year engagement type librarian across the state, and library school classmates in similar roles across the country. Wow, another student success librarian? You're one of us, one responded. Through this community, I learned about what other student success librarians were doing, especially during the pandemic. One of my classmates at Smith College discussed her attempts with virtual programming, inspiring me to try a similar program on my campus. Most librarians are willing to Zoom about their work and are eager to share ideas, materials, and resources. I bet that I'm on nearly every student success librarian listserv. All in all, starting a new job during the global pandemic has been challenging, but I'm incredibly grateful for the journey and the opportunity to work alongside a supportive group of professionals at Bluford Library. Next up is my colleague, Franklin Robinson.
Thank you, Harvey. Good morning, everyone. My name is Franklin Robinson, and today I will talk a little bit about coaching and mentoring and how that can help to develop effective librarians, especially new librarians or newly hired librarians. I am the cataloging and metadata librarian at Bluford Library. Prior to that, I worked as a cataloging technician also at Bluford. With that being said, my onboarding process was pretty simple, fairly smooth. I think one of my biggest challenges was just the transition to a fully remote work environment. Technologically speaking, just trying to develop a working knowledge of all of the online applications and tools that we use for communication and project management, workflows, and things of that nature. So I've become much more proficient with applications like what we're using now, Zoom or Slack, or any of the online applications that our university provides for us. But today, I would like to talk a little bit about the strengths that I saw in the onboarding process at Bluford Library. Onboarding can be described as a structure or a framework in which new employees are able to gain knowledge, gain skills and behaviors, and understand the culture of the organization where they are now members, in hopes to help them to be as successful as possible. Within Bluford Library, there is a strong sense of cooperation, and I think that we do have a very good culture that is geared towards teamwork. In the context of the onboarding process, I think that coaching and mentoring can play a major role in the success of a new librarian. So if we just take a look at the slide that we have here, these are some of the activities that have been implemented just to help new librarians become acclimated to the position and the library and the university at large. This list that I have here is a list of activities and groups that I have been very fortunate to participate on, and I work with my colleagues with. So just going through participating on grant proposals. This was a great experience. I learned so many things just going through the process from starting the beginning parts of the grant up into the submission process. I'm still crossing my fingers that our grant is accepted, our grant proposal is accepted. Also assisting more experienced library faculty with their instruction classes has been a great help as well. As one who had no teaching experience before becoming a librarian, I was able to gain a lot of great experience teaching, and also just learning tips in order to help have a successful class. Tied in with that, I would say is shadowing and also assisting other librarians with their liaison duties. This has really helped to expose me to other faculty outside of the library, and also build relationships with these faculties and administrators as well. I've also gained great experience as far as assisting faculty with their academic research and also helping them to locate and discover resources for class instruction as well. Now, a new group that was developed, I would say, in the last year, maybe a few months before the pandemic started, is our junior library faculty development group, which is exactly what the title of the group is. It is charged with helping to develop new librarians, those new to the field of librarianship, as well as those who are new to Bluford Library. In these meetings, we meet twice a month to just discuss different aspects of academic librarianship that we all will face at some point, whether we are at the beginning of our careers, mid-career, or towards the latter parts of our career. And also serving on library committees and university committees as well has also presented a great opportunity to build those relationships once again with administrators and with other faculty members, and also really helps as far as keeping abreast of the most recent changes or any subjects that we really need to think about in terms of the library and the university as a whole. So with that being said, in closing, I would just like to say that as Harvey stated earlier, those formal and informal relationships, groups, and discussions can really, really do a great job as far as just exposing new librarians to some of their duties, some of their passions, as far as where they would like to take their careers, and hopefully to develop them into successful librarians to better assist students and faculty in the university. And with that, that'll close my portion of the presentation, and I relinquish it to Joni Chavis.
And I think I'm going to forward that back to AD Forrest Foster.
Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. My part of the presentation will be about the wave of emotions in dealing with the pandemic. Next slide, please. So again, I'm going to talk about the wave of emotions of leaving and joining an institution during the pandemic. I think in general, leaving an institution as a director, a former director, or any position can be exciting, but also taxing and strenuous. During the pandemic, or the height of the pandemic, I was the director at Fayetteville State University, and I do see some Broncos in here, so shout out to all the Broncos. But leaving an institution where we were fortunate to, create some momentum of success, such as, developing leaders, leaving talented individuals, building rapport with a lot of the internal and external partners and entities around campus, time and effort into creating positions, just building friendships. I think all of those can have, you can have mixed emotions when leaving any institution, when you've had success and you build relationships. But now if you couple that and add a pandemic to the dynamic, it really can fuel and drive and create an emotional roller coaster, so to speak. I departed Fayetteville State in April of last year. And so again, it was at the height of the pandemic, and I left in the midst of planning strategies to cope with the pandemic. So what does that look like? That looked like, kind of the similar things what we're doing now, remote working. What does that look like for EHRA and SHRA employees? Revising schedules, aligning duties, meeting 3 or 4 times a week, just, getting introduced to Zoom or Teams or whatever we were using. We were just talking about mask and sanitizer. The new phrase of essential workers, and social distancing was coming more prevalent. And just trying to figure out many of the unknowns that the pandemic was bringing forth. So in a sense, departing really felt to me that often less than bittersweet. I felt that even though there was opportunity out there, I felt that I let the team down in some ways. I felt that I had feelings of abandonment. I didn't finish tasks that we once started out, that we created, that we initiated. Even though we did some, we didn't, finish a lot of them. I was on certain committees, and I had to walk away and depart from them. We were in the midst of the SACS accreditation, and so I had to walk away from some of that. And so it was rough, and that's why those feelings of abandonment were there, I think, for me. So why did I leave? Well, as I tell seasoned newbies, I tell senior leaders, junior leaders, when opportunity presents itself, do not hesitate. As Katie mentioned before, she talked about the statistics, and Harvey mentioned earlier, last year, this time around April and May, it was very sparse out there as far as jobs and opportunities. So anytime when you have an opportunity, please take it, make sure it strategizes or it lines up to what you want to do, and just go for it. Even when I acquired the position at A&T here, and everything was finalized, I didn't publicize it. I didn't publicly celebrate it at the time, just for the sake of, I knew that a lot of my coworkers, friends, and peers were going through a lot, whether job loss, whether, furloughs, So it was a personal thing for me. I didn't want to be seen as someone progressing, but a lot of my friends and peers were going through hardship, or they might be struggling in their own aspect. So whether that perception was true or false, that's how I dealt with it. I didn't promote it on any social media platform. So COVID left me in a dynamic of, should I celebrate or should I not? But with that being said, whether pre-COVID, whether during COVID, whether post-COVID, when you have an opportunity and the opportunity knocks, you have to answer it. And don't be afraid to, go out and seek opportunities. Exposure is one of the life's best teachers. And sometimes we have to sacrifice. But real quickly, what I want to talk about too, on another aspect, is just the onboarding process here at North Carolina A&T. The HR department was wonderful. I think I was one of the first individuals to go through that onboarding process, which was virtual. It was streamlined, it was well put, very organized, and I'm very appreciative, and I applaud their opportunities here at North Carolina A&T State University. And the last thing I want to talk about, I want to transition real quickly to, is the future of remote working. I know there's a lot of information in the news about General Motors and Google going more online, doing remote working. Of course, they're corporate entities, but I think that the UNC system can play a huge role and vital role in ensuring some flexibility for UNC system employees in regards to teleworking. There's no, or not, I would say not, but there's not a lot of empirical evidence as of yet, because we're still in the midst of it, but there's some anecdotal evidence that it does work. Of course, there must be some structure to it. There must be some more assessment of it, but I think anecdotally it shows that it can work, and individuals have been productive. It's just probably have to put some more structure around it. But I'm very, I can't wait to see what the UNC system says and how it enacts down the road for the future. Thank you. That's been my time. I appreciate it. I think Joni is up next.
Good morning. Team building is key. My name is Joni Chavis, and I'm so pleased to be here continuing this dialogue with all of you. I onboarded into this new position as an associate professor and head of research, instructional and engagement services here at the F.D. Bluford Library on March 16th, 2020, the day that everyone was either at home or being told to. There was no problem with onboarding. I was in the last face-to-face session. And of course, as my colleague Forrest Foster says, HR is great. I had also worked in the Bluford Library in the fall of 2019, so I didn't feel that sense of loss yet, because I had met many of the faculty and staff that I was responsible for supervising, and I had some awareness of the library culture. I want to talk with you a little bit about what I consider to be my before and after. Before I came to library, I worked in the private industry for almost 15 years. And following my husband and his career allowed me to move into this, what I consider my lifeline as a second career. I have a master's in library and information science from the School of Library and Information Science at Louisiana State University. Go Tigers. And after working in the community colleges there for a collective 20 years as a library administrator in Louisiana, 18 years in a Title III grant director, I felt that I had brought with me a mix of strong team building skills and leadership skills, learning from prior positions and having a wonderful group of colleagues and friends, mentors and sponsors, that I felt that the toolbox was full and that I was ready. So if you are a new librarian, please keep this in mind as you move forward in your career. Working and leading a team from home was not too difficult for me, because as a consultant, working from a distance was good practice. And as a dean and administrator in the community college, there were times that I had to work from all over due to responsibilities of travel requirements, sometimes 2 to 4 times per month, sometimes with a minimum of 3 to 5 days at a time. And so you cut your teeth on that. It's a pandemic. Now what? What do we do? Some of that experience was living and working in Louisiana during Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, and those were very dark days for Southern Louisiana. And it still in some way impacts everyone in higher ed there. How did I make this shift here with this pandemic? Well, I always talk to myself and I ask myself 2 questions. What did we need immediately? that was not in place and who had the skill set to get us there. From the SWOT analysis that I completed while preparing for this position, I realized, yes, one of those things was getting our online services up and ready. Okay, I was a Girl Scout. I try to always be prepared. I met with the team via a couple in person that were leaving the day that I walked over, some via email. We did phone calls, we Skyped, we did Zoom, much like many of you, to just get feedback of what needed to be in place. And leaders and seasoned colleagues, get everyone involved because you cannot do this by yourself. There are always great ideas and suggestions from others, and you need to listen. And I have to practice on that. After I jokingly told the team, no idea is too crazy or too small. And they got to work. Remember, these are professionals who think about things that we may not always think about. And I tell people all the time, remember there was a movie script called Sharknado, and it has become the most watched cable series ever. Ask a Librarian and chat services were one set of needs in addition to some specific training. And we had folks that were on the team and they were ready. They were phenomenal team all around Bluford Library. And so this happened quickly. And one of the things that I felt we needed to do was some in-house training with the team. So we did a risk assessment, which helped the team understand the team. So we worked through this process. And now that we're working at a distance, we have been able to come up with ways to meet the new responsibilities and ideas. Now, innovation is great. And I think that college and university libraries and their teams have done great jobs in working and supporting patrons during this time. And even though I get closer to the end of this very fulfilling career, and I still think I have about 15 more years to go, you still have to prepare and train for it. We always talk about innovation, cutting edge, the global divide, the digital divide, and how to overcome them. And how well, I always ask, are we thinking and planning for these kinds of disruptors? The future must hold how well we deeply think about what the future looks like, strategic planning. What could it become for, and what does it look like for libraries? What planning are we preparing for to equip ourselves for crisis intervention and succession as they relate to the ability to have a toolkit that works and is ready to go when we need it, that we're not scrounging around looking for ways to support our students, our faculty, our staff in the university. We need to be able to do this beforehand. Brainstorm. We must work on finding answers to these scenarios. And I think that we must be more aware of tabletop exercises, just like the military. We need to be ready when something out of the norm or something really good happens. We don't want our patrons to suffer. And so librarians have the expertise to do so. And I feel that we're really good at being first adopters. And while we're at the table, we need to keep our seat at the table so that we can continue to support our learners for this. Thank you.
So you've heard from 2 early career librarians, mid-career librarian, and 2 senior library administrators. We welcome any questions that you might have for us this time.
And you can put your questions in the chat if you prefer that, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question directly to the speaker that you want it to go to at this time. I would, while we're getting some questions together, I was just going to note how you all worked directly into what Dr. Cawthorn was talking about this morning with the innovation and making changes to fit your needs when you were trying to find these jobs or fit things into your positions. Just like what Ms. Chavis was just talking about just now about innovation. What do you need and what do we need right now, and how and who are we going to get it done? And that's the way all of us had to think during that pandemic. But it also says that we need to be thinking like that all the time. You know, what kind of innovations do we need to have in our places? Are there any other questions or concerns at this time?
Mine's more of a comment rather than a question, but
Okay,
um, I'm impressed with your abilities to switch jobs, and just kind of amazed at that time where your institution happened to bring on all of these librarians in positions at that unfortunate time. That it sounds like your HR department worked really well, and I like the program, especially the junior library faculty development group.
yes,
And I think that's a great idea, and something that even for people at smaller libraries to reach out to those at other institutions, because it's important, like you all said, to get to know the people that you're working with, to build that relationship. But whenever you're only one of 5 or one of 4 librarians at a smaller institution, it's important to find that too. So really, like I said, just some comments, but thank you. It was valuable, all of your contributions.
That junior faculty development group really has been a lifeline. And one of the things that has been awesome is that we've had people like A.D. Foster and Joni Chavis come to these meetings, right? And we ourselves have been allowed to present to the group, right? So it's been very collaborative. And I also think, strangely, as much as I don't wish a pandemic on any planet world, this has enabled, I think the organizational structure of remote work has enabled us to check in much easier and have this junior faculty development meeting in ways that we might not have been able to in person. It's taken the time commitment a little down so that people can join.
and Franklin, you were saying that you're the cataloging and metadata librarian, but you also work directly with the junior library faculty development group. Was this one of your ideas, or was it an idea that came from the main director and you took it on? How do you really work with that?
Well, I just participate as being a new faculty member in the library. I think it was started maybe a few months before the pandemic started. So it's pretty much open to library school students. So if you have staff that are in library school or those who have just completed library school. And so yeah, we just have a lot of discussions, and it really helps you to see the lower parts of that iceberg. So, I mean, I've worked in cataloging a long time. I've worked in libraries for several years, but there were so many aspects of librarianship that I was not aware of until we started to have these discussions. Yes, and thank you, Katie. Stephen Bollinger, our systems librarian, I think he saw the need to have this group, being that I guess at that time we were looking at hiring several librarians, and I think a few of those were at an entry level capacity. So I think he saw the need to kind of corral all of the junior faculty or new librarians together, just to get them acclimated into what they will face, in the coming future.
I have a couple of more questions, but I wanted to see if anyone else wanted to ask a question before I jump back in.
Ms. Johnson, I have a question, if I may.
Okay.
Those that are participating, would you type in the chat where you are in your career? Are you a new librarian? Could you just tell me how many years you've been a librarian, so that we have some information about who our audience has been? We would appreciate that. Thank you.
And while we're waiting for people to put that into the chat, Forrest, I wanted to ask you a question. You talked about strategic opportunities, and even though this was a very emotional change for you, to leave and start new. But you said you spoke about something saying a strategic opportunity. Would you elaborate a little bit more on that and how that fit into your career plans?
Well, it depends on what your goal is in life. I know we all have different backgrounds, we have different experiences, and as Franklin and all the newbies talked about, they have goals. I know Harvey talked about, this job being his dream job. So we all have our backgrounds, we all have our experiences, but you develop over time, you get to a position and you get to a specific, or you see yourself at a specific place or position. And, a lot of times, I think individuals, and I'm speaking upon, some of my experiences and some of the colleagues I know, we take positions for different reasons. And there's a lot of information that comes from that. You could be a spouse who you're moving with your significant other, and you have to take certain jobs because of that dynamic. But then there's sometimes too the dynamic of we chase certain things for different reasons. So there's a lot of external reasons and internal reasons. But the more you can align your wants and your needs to where you want to be, that's what I mean by strategic. If you have a goal in mind, you see yourself at a certain place or a certain position, attack it, go for it. Step out on that ledge and try to attack it. Now, again, when as you get a little older and you have kids and children, a lot of things change, right? But while you're young and while you're, still able to be mobile, take those opportunities because they don't often come, as we know, especially in the midst of a pandemic. So try to be strategic as much as possible within, your environment and how much you can control.
Thank you. Give somebody else a chance. If you can just unmute yourself and ask your question.
Well, I'll ask the group another question. And I do appreciate, thank you for putting the information in the chat. It's very interesting to see where everyone is and what they're doing. Could you tell us what you've done during the pandemic that was new for maybe your area, your units, your libraries, and anything that you've learned in the midst of the pandemic now that we're starting to come out of it, or it's something that you would do differently in the UNC system with us all being there for the fall? If you could drop that in the chat, that would be great as well. Anything you'd like to share with us?
Or if you want to just say something that you've done innovatively or different at your library, you can share that at this time. And just unmute yourself. Is there anything else, any of the participants, the panel, if there's anything else that you'd like to share with us at this time? We have a few more minutes, about 5 more minutes. I want to know more about what a success librarian does. That's a new title.
Sure. So I teach some library instruction as well as work with our first year students. I work closely with TRIO as well on campus.
Okay.
So it's really designed to make sure that our students have the research skills and to help them make that transition from wherever they're coming, some coming from high school or community colleges, to North Carolina A&T. Help them succeed. So that's what I do.
This is a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
This is a question coming from the pandemic. Are you having staff members that are now saying, oh, I really can work from home. It's really, I don't really need to come back in. I've been very successful at home. So how do you respond to that?
So, and I can't speak for everybody, and Joni help me out here. I'm not sure if we've heard a lot of that in-house in our library, but I know we had a university-wide meeting, and a lot of the discussion was about that. A lot of individuals from other departments. That was some of the main questions, is the remote working and how that will play in the future of A&T. But in-house, I haven't heard a lot of information about that. I haven't, we haven't had a lot of discussion, or at least they're not talking about it yet. But yeah, I mean, I think that, well, number one, I think the flexibility, well, the COVID itself, it's still relevant, right? We still see numbers out there. They're not increasing, but the numbers are kind of leveling off. However, it's still prevalent. But I do think that some type of incremental staging is still needed. Just turning the switch on and say going back to 40 hours is not, I don't think it's healthy for number one. Two, I don't think it's a good morale booster either. So I think, as I said before in the presentation, and I think however this game is going to be played with the state and, them communicating it to the UNC institutions and community colleges and everyone else, it's going to be, they need to be very strategic in how they move forward in delivering this. But as far as in-house in our library, I'm not hearing a lot of, and maybe we just haven't had that discussion yet. We have some staff meetings coming up shortly, so I'm sure it'll probably come up, but I haven't heard much about it. What about you, Joni?
I'll only add that, from the discussions that we've had with our team, and one of the things that AD has really worked with the department heads to say is that, we try to prepare everyone early. Many of us have not been at home the entire time. A&T had 3,800 students on campus. So we still had some face-to-face classes. We could not shut the library. We lowered hours. We weren't the 24/5 that we are used to being, but we were still open from 8 in the morning to 10 at night. So many of us, just about everyone in the library at some point transitioned in the building and worked a desk. Many of the things that we did were placed online, no face-to-face instructional courses. So they've had some leeway. And I think the concern that they ask, if they are going to ask, is, will I have to work that 8 to 5, that 9 to 6, that 10 to 7? We are very concerned. And I know that our administration is very thoughtful about how people feel. So I would just say, you just have to have those conversations early to ease everyone into the transition, especially if you have peers and colleagues who have been out the entire time. And we just were unable to do that at A&T because we had students in dorms on campus and few students. So start the conversations now. And I know that it's on everyone's mind because, as AD said, we had a 2-hour town hall with the university cabinet. And that was the question that everyone kept asking in some way, shape, or fashion. So start your conversations now.
And Dr. Kelly, I know UNCC, which I think you're across the street from, or at least in the neighborhood of, I know they were one of the first institutions to kind of say a couple months ago that, you know, in July, they're going to go back to full speed. And I think there were some rumblings throughout the university down there. And now I know they have created some type of flexibility now. And I think that's what a lot of the institutions and some of the libraries will probably go to, some type of flexibility. Not being 40 hours, but maybe, you know, coming back again incrementally, maybe 26 to 30 hours inside the building. And, you know, if that can happen, I think that would definitely be a plus.
And there was some interesting information going on in the chat along with what you were saying, Dean. And so I just think that, you know, people are saying that there needs to be a hybrid models, that people need to have the best situation that works for them, but also the best situation to work for our patrons or our users. We have to keep them in mind as well. Did Harvey or anyone have a closing remark? We have just a minute or so before we close this session.
I'd just like to add that this has been a really great conversation. I've enjoyed being a part of this panel, and I've enjoyed your questions in this conversation. Thanks for attending our presentation.
Yes, thank you to everybody who attended this presentation this morning. There's a lot more conference to go for the rest of the day. Some interesting discussions that will be taking place later on today as well. So thank you guys so much for being here this morning.